Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome again back to Twitch, the AWS User Group UK. I can't actually remember which meetup number this is, maybe 46 or something. If you're new here, say hello. The Twitch chat is open. I can see a few people have joined for the first time, and Twitch is quite helpfully telling me that, for example, Pranav KK is a first-time chatter, as is CM6051. Who were both on the stream early by about 10 minutes and had the joy of listening to that looping music for something like 10 minutes. So exciting times. Do introduce yourself if you're new. Tell me where you're from, which part of the country, or in fact even the world. We do occasionally have people coming to us from different continents, in fact different time zones. In fact, one of our speakers this week is also joining us from a long way away, Singapore, in fact. Hello, John from Cambridge Machine Learning. Hello, Uzasan. Hello, Enigmamu. I'm not going to try pronouncing all of these, but great to have you on the stream. Thanks for joining. I've got a little bit of preamble to do. We'll talk through our sponsors and so forth, but for the first couple of minutes, let's just introduce ourselves. I'm John, by the way. You can see that written down the bottom of the screen there. So what's new since the last meetup? Well, I've got a new camera, as you can tell. It's quite pretty, isn't it? I've sorted out my lighting setup a little more. It's a bit less dark in this room than it was in previous streams, and also, of course, that means that I've got a second camera that is left over from what I was using before. So we now have a reaction cam. You can see my ludicrous setup with too many monitors and my auto cue over there, which I'm talking to you at right now. But I thought you'd be interested in seeing behind the scenes. I know the photos I've published of that after these events have been broadly interesting to people. I can talk you through what's there on the chat later if you like. Other things that have happened since last time we met. I think on the day that we last had our meetup, the the AWS App Runner was released. Interested to know if any of you on the stream today have tried App Runner in the intervening couple of months. I haven't personally. I think some of my team have maybe kicked the tires on it to see whether it is in fact a better Elastic Beanstalk or just another thing that can be used to deploy apps, but not do a great job of it. Do let us know if you're using that. Other things that have been going on since then, we've had 2 AMAs on our Discord channel. We've had Yen Trey, who I now know that's how to pronounce his name. I might have referred to him in the previous stream as Yan Kui, because that's how it's spelt. But obviously, Yen is from the east, so his actual pronunciation is Yen Trey. One of the AMA questions was about how he pronounced his name. So sorry, Yen, for clearly getting your name wrong last time, but hopefully corrected for this time. We've also had Jeff Barr on the AMA. Both of them have answered a bunch of your questions. Really interesting. Those are preserved for posterity on the Discord. Right now, the channels are available, and we've got another special guest coming up on the AMA in the next month or so, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that shortly. Other things that have gone on in the meantime, ECS Anywhere has gone general availability. So if you want to run ECS workloads in your data center, if you're one of those people who still has data centers for some reason, then you could be deploying ECS into there with ECS Anywhere, now generally available. Other things of note, I kind of went through the list of announcements in the last couple of months and had a look on our Slack at work to see which of the ones our team thought were interesting. There's I also can't read my writing now because I was desperately hungover earlier today when I wrote this. You can now flag AMIs as outdated, which is quite useful. We've got a load sitting around that I think the general public are just using, and they've been there forever and haven't been updated. So it'd be great to let people know that those are not for use anymore. Changes to the ACM certificate manager. You can now share CAs across accounts. You might have also noticed in the last couple of months there was a fire in the Frankfurt data center, which I believe was contained and didn't damage anybody, although it might have disrupted your workloads for a little while if you had your stuff in. I think that's EU Central 2, maybe. I can't remember the designation exactly. What else is going on? Bunch of changes to Control Tower, and most recently an updated version of the client VPN desktop client for Linux. So you can now, if you're using the AWS client VPN, you can use Linux for that now, which you might want to do if you're using OpenVPN. Throw away some more things that Amazon can now run for you instead. few more folk on the Twitch chat there, asking about links to the Discord server. Yep, there will be in a second, in fact, a link to the Discord server in this set of slides. My clicker's not working. Good, brilliant, great start. We've asked where you are. I think we've got people in Edinburgh. Is Edinburgh the furthest afield we have people this evening? Probably not. I mean, Boyka, who's speaking today, is coming to us from Singapore. Maybe we've got someone who can beat Singapore in terms of complete distance away from where I am, which is in London, southeast. Letchworth Garden City. Yep, that's not quite Edinburgh or Singapore. Getting there. Nothing to be ashamed of, though, of course. Perfectly reasonable place, the Garden Cities. We have, of course, a Twitter account, so if you are not subscribed to us or following us on Twitter, you maybe won't hear about our upcoming events and so forth, so do give that a follow, and if you'd like to tweet at us, I'm sure Paul is keeping an eye on that. Maybe see if he's paying attention. Throw a tweet in that direction, see whether he's got it up or not. We have someone from India. Excellent, good job. I think is that maybe the furthest afield we've got this evening. A Glaswegian, welcome. Glasgow's a great city. I've enjoyed my time in Glasgow. Lots of craft beer, which tends to lead to bad decision making ultimately, but a great place to spend a weekend. We also then have our Discord server. That's the link on there. Nice and easy to follow if you're copy. Obviously, can't copy and paste it from the video. The Discord has, I think, something like 300 people on it at the moment, which is pretty good going. And as well as the sort of general chat channel and the AMA channels, we've got channels for talking about certification. We've got channels for posting job boards. If you've got a job that you are advertising in your company, it's AWS related, you're welcome to post that on there. If you're looking for a job, obviously you can go and look on there. I'm hiring, by the way, at the Scale Factory. If that's your thing, do let us know if we could talk about you working for me. Obviously, we have sponsors this evening who are also hiring, and we're going to get onto them in just a second. 410 on Discord now. Thanks, Paul. Up-to-date numbers. You can see, obviously, I'm slightly behind the times. We're also on LinkedIn. If you are a LinkedIn user, I'm increasingly a LinkedIn user because that's where boring business people like me hang out these days. But if you would like to keep an eye on us there, you can do so. And our next AMA with famed cloud economist and platypus botherer Corey Quinn, who most of you will probably have heard of, because if you follow anybody related to AWS on Twitter, Corey is about 50% of the content because he's just a prolific, spends most of his day typing into that little box. But if you have any questions burning that you would like to ask Corey, you can do so in our AMA channel for him, and he will be answering those at 7 p.m. on Wednesday the 28th of July, which I'm reliably informed by Corey himself is actually his birthday. I gave him the opportunity to choose a different date, but he was entirely fine with that. He has also promised to wear a hat. So I shall be checking up on that when we get to the 28th. So that's in 2 weeks' time, 7 p.m. Wednesday. If you've got questions for Corey, do pop over and ask them on the channel. They will be there waiting for him, and once he's answered those, they will stick around in perpetuity. On the night of the AMAs, we've had people join. There's a bit of sort of to and fro. It's been a good thing to join. Quite a lot of fun. Other things going on. As organisers of an AWS User Group, we're part of the AWS UK and Ireland community groups group of people. Actually, Paul is the person who spends most of his time chatting with those folks. But there is a community groups deep racer competition for beginners running on the 28th of July. So if you have any interest in deep racer, that's obviously at the same time as our AMA. Great planning, everybody. Well done. And if you're interested in running a deep racer, if you haven't tried Deep Racer before, it's an exciting way of learning ML services with tiny vehicle thing that runs around the track. If you'd like to enter that, you can point your camera at that QR code, which hopefully is a better QR code than the one that I saw in a pub I was in last week, which wasn't recognisable as a QR code to the iOS app, but was fine with Android, thereby proving, of course, that craft beer people are exclusively Android users for the most part. But if you can't follow that, I think Paul will probably share the link to the QR code that the QR code is linking to in the chat, and you can follow it from there. We're also on the Discord running some online study groups. There's a channel on Discord for people who are studying towards exams. I actually passed my security specialty last week, which was actually pretty challenging, as I haven't really built anything on AWS myself for a while. My job tends to be spreadsheets, email, and video these days. But if you are studying towards an exam, or you're thinking about it, you'd like some help, do shout on the Discord channel. We also have some information coming up this evening about a program to get you through the Solutions Architect Associate exam that Yo-Yo is going to tell us a little bit about in between the talks this evening. Do remember to complete our survey at the end of this evening. Your feedback is really useful to us. It's how we figure out what we need to change, what things we can make better. And so at the end of the evening, I'll share this QR code later on, but we'd love to... we'd love to hear your thoughts. How is the content for you? Is it technical enough? Not technical enough? Is there anything else that you'd like to hear? Are you desperate to get back in person? Appreciate that the online events are now competing with your time, competing for your time with things that are actually happening in person now that a few more things are open and more people are vaccinated. So thanks for joining. It's good to see you here, and choosing to join us here on Twitch in the indoors instead of being outside in the nice sunshine, where for me it's a little bright today, to be honest. Right, so it's time to thank our sponsors. Of course, they are the same sponsors that you've seen previously, but they have again sent us brand new videos to talk about themselves. So first of all, big thanks to Deloitte. Here is Deloitte with a message for you all.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the AWS User Group. It's great to see you all joining virtually, although I'm sure we'll be able to get back to the original in-person format soon, as the social distancing rules get lifted. I'm excited that you're able to join us today for a discussion on AWS migrations and effective SRE setup. By way of introduction, my name is Prathamesh Chadav. I'm a senior manager in our cloud engineering practice at Deloitte. My responsibilities include advising clients on their cloud strategies, while also helping them build, migrate, and modernize on AWS. I joined Deloitte 8 years ago, while starting off in the New York office and then moved to London in 2019. It's been an exciting journey to see how AWS has transformed technology capabilities for businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. I have been personally involved in multi-year AWS migrations for our large financial services clients, FinOps implementations at various financial and private sector clients, and AWS platform engineering for global banks. We are seeing an extensive demand from our clients to accelerate their AWS cloud adoption journeys, and which is driven by various forces. And hence, we are always looking to grow our practice to meet this need. If this is something of interest to you, please feel free to reach out. I encourage you to sit back and enjoy the sessions today, but feel free to talk to us if there is anything we can do to support going forward. Thank you.
Thank you to Deloitte. And our second sponsor for this evening is eSynergy Solutions. Here's a message from eSynergy.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ulrike Eder. I'm interim CMO at eSynergy Solutions, and we're here as very, very proud and excited sponsors of the AWS User Group meetup, and have been so since its very beginnings. You're in for a very, very exciting session today with John and Boyke, where first of all we hear about migrations to AWS, pitfalls, tips, do's and don'ts, more of and less of, and then we'll look a little bit more into SRE and how to do it a little bit more effectively. About eSynergy, for those of you who haven't heard of us, we are a technology consultancy delivering business value from the cloud. So we love all things cloud. We help our clients adopt, scale, optimize their cloud infrastructure, adopt cloud native stacks, and everything around it. And we work with public sector and financial services clients, and for instance, have been working together with AWS on projects at HMRC and HMPO, just as an example. eSynergy is a boutique consultancy. We only operate in the UK, and we are leveraging the gig economy. So we don't work with a large permanent technical workforce. Our technology and delivery teams are formed of contractors that have worked together, that are vetted, are very experienced across our service offerings and industry sectors. But we believe that what's in it for our clients is that they really get custom-built teams that bring the matching and right experience and skill set and industry sector knowledge to their business and technology problems and help them solve it faster and more efficiently. We're always looking for new talent and people that are looking for the next challenge, looking for the next project. So if you're interested, if you have experience across our service offerings, please do not hesitate to shout out and reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And I'll let you go now on to more exciting things, and I'll see you soon. Nice to meet you, and enjoy the show.
Thank you, eSynergy. In fact, the talks are going to be the opposite way around to the way that that announcement said, because Boyke is in, as we said, in Singapore, and it's pretty much his bedtime. So we're going to start with Boyke and then do John's talk after that. Other sponsors to thank today are Sainsbury's Tech, who are the company who would ordinarily be providing us with a physical home if we were not currently locked down. We're hoping to get back and use their lovely lecture theatre / event space for our future in-person meetups as soon as we're able to do that. I'm not yet sure when we're going to do that. Our next event is going to be September. Whether or not that's going to be in person or online, we will let you know, of course. Today also we have a prize draw, which is paid for by our sponsors, and if you are interested in winning, I believe usually it's an Amazon Echo and one of two Echo Dots for first, second, and third prize respectively. Paul can confirm in the chat if that's still the case. And if you would like to enter, follow that the link with your QR code and fill out your details, and we'll draw a raffle later on this evening. I will be announcing those results at the end of the stream today. Please do note, those of you who are joining from outside of the UK, we can only ship these devices into the UK. I think we probably buy them from Amazon, all right? But if you are outside the UK, we can't get those to you. So please do bear that in mind. If you are outside the UK and want to enter, you would need to be able to provide us with a UK address to send that to if you win. So today we have talks from John and from Boyke. We're actually going to start with Boyke's this evening. Just another quick look in the chat. I can see we've got someone from Wigan, from Bracknell. Where else? That's about it. We're a bit thinner on the ground than we have been in previous streams. But thanks for joining. I'm going to press these buttons over here in a fashion that hopefully will work, and we're going to start with Boyke, who is going to talk to us about effective SRE to save the error budget. Sit back and enjoy.
Welcome everyone, my name is Boyke and thank you for joining my session. In this session, I will share what is effective SRE and how practicing this can help us to save the error budget. Before I share about the effective SRE, I think it's better for me to start talking about the error budget first. So let's say SLO is the confidence level from the team to their service they own, and I think the error budget is the buffer that we can use for planned or unplanned events in production. For a planned event, this can be something like upgrading, patching, migration, or schedule maintenance. And for unplanned event, basically any kind of production issue is unplanned event. If I can split the incident process into sub-processes, there will be 4 sub-processes, that is acknowledgement, investigation, mitigation, fix or repair. We also have mean time to detect, mean time to recover, and mean time to resolve. And the objective of an effective SRE is to reduce or at least minimize the duration of each process. So eventually to spend the error budget more efficiently. Let's go through one by one for more detail. The first process is acknowledgement, which is the process when the team or system get notified. The requirement for this process, that is, the first one is SLO. We need to have SLO defined for each application or service that we own or we maintain, which later we will use it as a benchmark or threshold for other systems like notification, service, or alarm. Next one is metrics. There are metrics for infrastructure, service, and also for data, and other metrics like DORA metrics, where focus on deployment, development and deployment, and also the popular one is the 4 golden signals, where we need to monitor the latency, traffic, errors, and saturation. And then logs, similar to the metrics. In the logs, there are also application logs, infrastructure logs, any kind of logs, also system logs. But there's one important thing about preparing the logs. Before that, we need to understand the consumer of the logs. First, the log that is consumed by the system. This can be alert system or any automation system. For this one, we need to have severity information in the logs, which will be used by the system to trigger an action. Second, the logs that consumed by the developer. Usually these logs have more detail like stack trace information. And the last one, the important thing for SRE is the other engineers. So it is expected the first responder in production issue is not the engineer who developed the application itself. This can be the L1 or L2 support or any your teammates who usually may not fully aware of the service. So what actually we can do about this? What we need is a custom log that provides a straightforward message. For example, this common error message for S2 exception. This is common error that we can see in the error log. So what would you do if you see this error message? Maybe you will need to find the repository name first, pull the code, and try to understand what this code is doing. Or you can also open the ticket to AWS support, send them the event ID and extended ID that you can find in the log, and wait for them to reply with more detailed information. Okay, now let's compare if we have this information in the log, which whoever the incident commander or on-call engineer is, they can take immediate action without spend some time for doing analysis. So this information is straightforward and easy to understand to anyone who see this message. At least there are 3 main information that can be useful during investigation. The first one is the actor, who is doing the action, and the action itself, what this actor doing, and the object. Now it's about the process on the acknowledgement. We can get notified either automatically like alarm or pager, or we can also get notified manually like a ticketing system to get a report from external organization, from the user maybe, or from your client, or for internal communication channel for external team. This can be a Slack channel or dedicated Slack channel, or what's called a Telegram group, WhatsApp group. And of course the last one is a dashboard for internal or on-call team to monitor. Okay, so the next sub process is investigation. Well, it is the process where you try to find the root cause of the production issue. In this previous process, I already mentioned the logs, but during the investigation, we need more logs and logs. There are API call logs, production change logs, activity or event timeline, or in AWS they have CloudTrail, access log for ELB, S3, and also low-level network activity or VPC flow logs. All these logs have different information and only relevant depending on the issue itself. The next one is dashboard. So what's the difference with the dashboard in the previous sub-process? During investigation, we only need some of the metrics, the one that more relevant with the issue, which later we can correlate with each other metrics and the one that can give a perspective. And it is called a single pane of glass, but keep in mind that single pane of glass doesn't mean we put all the metrics in one interface or in one dashboard, or it may break your browser. The metric that we should put are the main metric of the application, the data source, and the up or downstream data. We see this as an end-to-end monitoring. The next one is APM, or Application Performance Monitoring, or in AWS they call it X-ray. This feature like we zoom into the application and see more detail inside it. Some of the useful information like the request time for external data like API, or the time taken for database query, or CPU utilization for each process, and so on. APM is very useful feature and it is quite costly actually, and if you have budget constraint, it's better to install or enable this feature to some of the nodes. Let's say if you have 1000 instances, enable the 10% should be enough. It's better because it's better than no APM at all. The last requirement, of course, it's a internal documentation. Just make sure that we put all the detail in the documentation. Again, the one who handle the incident is not always the one who create the application, so better to help them by create a detailed and holistic documentation. Okay, and then for investigation we need tools. Many tools for different purposes can be used. The one that's related to network, hardware, process, security, and analyzing the logs. So during investigation, knowing and using the right tools can save time, especially if we're dealing with huge amount of data. The difference can be significant. The next one is methodology. There are some options that can be used for doing root cause analysis. The first one is tree diagram, where we break down the issue based on the symptom. From the symptom, we list down the possible root cause until we get the actual root cause. It is a very common method. And then there's a 5 whys. In this method, we keep probing or keep asking a question about the situation until we come up with a conclusion. Here's the example from the common use case where the user report that they cannot open the home page. Why we need to doing these 5 whys? Because if we don't keep challenge ourselves with this question, we might satisfy with the conclusion that the root cause is 90% of CPU utilization from this example, where this solution is as simple as upscaling or adding more nodes, but we need to fix, but it is not fixing the actual root cause. And then the next one is the event correlation. I found this feature in Datadog, but I'm not sure if CloudWatch has the same feature right now. With this feature, we can compare one metric with the other, and compare one metric with the other one and with the other that has same pattern, which can help us to distinguish which one is the root cause and which one is the impact of the root cause. Okay, the next process is mitigation. So in this process, we should focus on restoring the service back, because investigating takes time and fixing also takes time, but we must think about how the user can use our service again, even if just doing a temporary solution like restarting the web server, adding more nodes, or block certain IP or port if it is related to security. Anything that can make our system up and running again. And some of the requirement for mitigation is like providing a runbook for each application, which also cover the edge cases. Upgrade your team skill. Remember that production issue can be from many factors like security, performance, bug, cloud, cost, database, network, etc. So to expand your knowledge is the same important as in-depth knowledge, at least that's for SRE. So if you are good at system or creating application, but if your application running on cloud, it's better for you to learn more about what this cloud vendor provide you for analysis, for debugging, for troubleshooting, anything that can help you to mitigate or investigate the issue. And I found that the post-mortem review is very important because we can learn valuable things from here, something that we miss or something that we need to focus on more, the edge cases, anomalies. All these things are not something you can find in any formal course or training. And then a sufficient permission or role. Your organization may want to limit high-level access to certain team member only. But remember that the incident commander or the one who handle the incident needs this permission to take immediate action. We should minimize the time for escalation if it's only for a simple task, but require higher privilege, like create or reboot or terminate an instance. And for the last two, the explanation as simple as any changes that can be automated should go through via CI/CD pipeline. Other than that, you need to have a change management process which is the set of rules if you want to make any changes in production. And for the process, for the mitigation, it's a common process like the collaboration within the team or external team or with vendor, and creating the communication channel, how or where should we initiate the communication. So in Autodesk, on every production issue we should create a dedicated Slack channel with the certain format for the channel name. Then we invite all the relevant people, the stakeholders, management to the channel. And not also on some cases we need also to invite external from the external organization. For example, like we need to invite AWS TAM or engineer for discussion in this channel. So this can help us to isolate the conversation and share any updates or finding faster. The last one is action. As I mentioned earlier, mitigation only focuses on restoring the service or minimizing the damage if it is related to security breach. The last sub-process in incident handling is the fix or repair of the actual root cause. In production issue, there is two kinds of root cause: the contributing factor and the actual root cause. How how to distinguish between two? Well, if your fix will not causing the same error again, then it is the actual root cause. But if still happen, then it is it considered as a contributing factor, not the actual root cause. So let me share about our use case in Autodesk. So there's a production issue that happened recently in my team, where our CI/CD pipeline somehow unexpectedly triggered the deployment in production and causing an issue. Since the evidence show us that the CI/CD causing this, so we tried to fix the CI/CD part and we managed to patch this right away. We tested and deployed the patch to production, and it worked properly, as it prevent the CI/CD to run unexpectedly. But does it solve the actual issue? Well, no, it didn't. It did not, because the actual root cause is not the CI/CD, but there is a missing parameter in the configuration file, and the previous patch did not resolve this issue. So this is the example of what is the difference between the actual root cause and the contributing factor. So what's the requirement in this phase? Firstly, you need to have clear escalation path. Few example like who will take responsible for each level, what is the expectation from each level, and how to collaborate between level 1, level 2 and level 3. And the next one is the impact analysis. We need to have some kind of checklist which we need to make sure that we already done the proper assessment for these changes. And for the process itself, this can be minor changes or major changes. Fixing a major changes can be refactoring the code, redesign the workflow, or maybe re-architecture the infrastructure. A quick recap. Handling production issue consists of 4 processes: acknowledgement, analysis, mitigation, and the fixing itself. The effective SRE is about to standardize the process of incident handling so the resolution can be done faster and more accurate. And not only that, this framework can be adopted and adapt on every company or organization, and it doesn't matter on how they organize the SRE team. Question?
And I'm joined all the way from Singapore this evening by Boyke himself, who you should be able to see now on your screen. Boyke, what time is it for you over there? You hearing me?
It's 1:30 a.m.
1:30 a.m. Wow. So yeah. We'll get through some questions and then let you get to bed. Obviously you've spent some time thinking about SRE and those sorts of things here. How long have you been working in this way at Autodesk? When did you sort of start on this journey?
So this is my 3rd year in Autodesk in data integration team. Yeah.
And was SRE the sort of mode of working there sort of from the beginning, or is that something that you've introduced as you've been working there?
So I start in this team as a DevOps engineer, but since I have same permission and same privilege as SRE, and also I participate in most of the production issue. Yeah. So so automatically my involvement in as SRE is since beginning.
Right, gotcha. And I guess with this being an AWS meetup, maybe you can talk a little bit about the ways in which AWS makes this easier for you, or the sort of things that you're particularly doing around AWS that aids the SRE process. Yeah,
the great thing about the AWS that they not only provide you the the infrastructure to operate your. So the all the necessary thing for debugging, for analyzing, for investigating, like even for the CloudWatch itself, they have a lot of feature that can help us to from investigating and fixing the root, analyzing the root cause.
Mm-hmm. How many teams are we talking about here? What's the size of Autodesk as an organization? How many developers are you supporting in that SRE model?
So in this team we have around 15. It's a small team, but how we organize the SRE team? So we have a dedicated team, separate team that handle the L1 and L2 with the first responder for any production issue. And then after the L1, L2, it go to engineer in our team. So in total, responsible in production is around 3 team that consists to 20 person in for each team. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. There is a question from the Twitch stream. Thank you, Azusan. He asks, or they ask, I shouldn't be assuming gender here. How do you organize your documentation and runbooks? For example, how do your SRE team members find relevant documentation for a specific issue?
First, the runbook is created based on the application that we own, that we maintain, and from the content itself, we have something like the infrastructure diagram, and the components name, the PIC, the contact person for this component, and also this runbook is are stored in the L1 and L2 team. So it's not we own the runbook, but it is stored in L1 and L2 team. And to find it relevant, it is based on the component itself. So basically, every incident happen, we try to correlate with the application itself. We start with the application itself, then we go based on the symptom on the runbook, where we can find in the runbook. Yeah.
Is this like a wiki or some other kind of document? What's the technique you use for maintaining those docs?
It's more. It's not like wiki because we have separate wiki and we separate between wiki and runbook. So in the runbook, we just put it all. What is the common error that we usually found in the production, and also we put some symptom where if this symptom happen, and what is the step need to be taken to solve this issue. And let's say if they don't find the step or the solution, we define what kind of information that we need to pass to the engineer. That we need, this information that we define in the runbook.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess let's talk a bit more about AWS things. Is there anything that you've got on your wish list that you'd like to see from AWS to make your life a bit easier? Something that you're hoping might show up at reInvent this year?
Yeah, I think one useful metrics that for at least for my team is correlation metrics, where we try to compare between one metric with the other metrics. For example, like if one machine has a CPU reach 90%, sometimes we need to compare which other component that has this same pattern, so we can correlate. It's easier for us to investigate the root cause.
Right, and you like to see that out of CloudWatch or something like that. Gotcha. Good stuff. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, Boyka. Appreciate it. It's pretty late for you. That's all the questions I have. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So thanks for calling in and sharing your wisdom with us. And we'll hopefully see you again another time. Thank you.
Sure. Thank
Thanks.
you.
There we go. It's Boyka, 1:30 in the morning in Singapore. That's some commitment to knowledge share for sure. Let's just pop back over for a second to the slide deck, where I can remind you that there is a prize draw happening this evening. If you would like the opportunity to win one of an Echo or Echo Dots, please do follow that link, fill in your details, and we will get that out to you. Do bear in mind that we can only post those out to UK addresses. So if you are, for example, Boyka, based in Singapore, you probably need to make sure that there is someone in the UK that we can post your prize to. So I will leave that up on the screen for a second before we go and have a brief word from Yo-Yo, who's going to tell us about the certification challenge. Just leave that there for a sec. Actually, Paul's posted the link in the chat already as well. Thanks, Paul. Paul's always diligently behind the scenes pasting stuff into Twitch as we go, and he does far more than that as well. This isn't Paul's only job. If you've seen us pop up on your LinkedIn or on Twitter or on the meetup group itself, it's Paul behind the screens pulling the strings on that one. He is a copy and paste expert, though. He's fully certified in that. Speaking of certification, let's hear all about the certification challenge from our friend Yo-Yo, who is also a behind-the-scenes person. Off you go, Yo-Yo.
Hi, I'm Yo-Yo, and I'm one of the co-organizers of this user group. I'm going to introduce the Get AWS Certified Solutions Architect Global Challenge we are currently part of. What is this challenge about? It's to help you become an AWS Certified Solutions Architect or earn a shiny badge or freebie like this. As many of you already know, the AWS Solutions Architect certification is highly recognized in the industry, and this time AWS is offering an incentive for anyone to take on this challenge. How to take part? It's very easy. First, sign up on the website. The link will be pasted in the Twitch chat window, and when you are prepared, you can get a voucher which gives you a 50% discount for taking the exam. The original price of the exam is $180, including VAT. That's about £130. Effectively, with the voucher, you only need to pay £65. It doesn't save you a fortune, but still enough to buy a bottle of champagne once you pass the exam. There are a few key dates. The most important two are you have until the 15th of October to join the challenge, and you have to take your exam before the 3rd of December. Again, the best way to keep track of the information is to join our Discord server, and we have a dedicated certification channel for publishing information like this. Okay, see you there.
Thanks, Yo-Yo. That one. I, in fact, have my bottle of champagne here. Actually, I have my SA associate already, but I'm ready to share this with anybody who does get their associate as part of this challenge. If you are thinking about doing that certification, why don't you let us know in the Twitch chat below? Yeah, it is below. It's below me as I'm looking. It's also below me as you're looking. Do let us know if you're up for that. You can also, of course, join the Discord channel on certification and ask for help, where many people who are already very well certified are lurking, ready to answer your questions about these things, such as where can I go to learn this material. What are the things that I'm likely to need to know, and so forth. We're more than happy to share. So thanks, Yo-Yo. I'm looking forward to seeing some of our membership get that certification as part of this challenge. Faisal 10 says they're interested, and also hello, you're a first-time chatter according to the Twitch feed. Jaydan Breeze, is that James Breeze from my past? I guess advanced networking cert next. Yeah, that's one I haven't attacked. I think is that what I think one of my team has that, but we don't do an awful lot of the advanced networking stuff. Cool. So we'll move on then and hear now from our second speaker, John Walker, who is going to be talking to us about migrating to AWS, which is something that you will need to know a little bit about in order to pass that exam. So take it away, John.
John Walker, and welcome to Migrating to AWS Pitfalls and Tips. In this presentation, we will go over the process of migrating an existing solution to AWS and a number of the things that you may come across that might cause issues, and provide you with some tips on ways to make your migration smoother and things you may come across in your migration journey. And just a quick bit about myself. I'm the Professional Services Team Lead at CISHQ. We're an AWS Advanced partner with the education and DevOps competencies. And we help a lot of companies, whether they're moving to AWS for the first time or they have an existing AWS solution where they want new features or want to make it more optimized. I hold a number of AWS certificates, including the S8 and DevOps Pro certificates. And I've also put some details here about my own sort of personal Twitter account and blog where I talk about AWS and general technology quite a lot. So you may be wondering why you want to move to AWS, whether you're at the start of your journey or you've already decided. I've put some tips here about why you might want to move there. So generally in AWS, you're paying for what you use. So it's very different from the on-premise model where you're locked into long contracts and you can't really change. So with AWS, you're moving from a capital expenditure module where you pay everything up front or you pay for long-term usage to an operating expense module where you're paying every month. And with AWS, you get a lot of new technologies such as serverless. Generally, AWS releases quite a number of products. So every week they release new products and features, and we do a weekly news update with sort of 10 to 20 new features or new announcements every week. And especially around reInvent, they will release hundreds or thousands of new features, and it can be quite a challenge to keep up with a lot of that, but there's a lot of good technology that you can use there. And generally AWS supports the products quite well, so from what I've seen, all the products that they've launched since 2006, when they launched was S3, they haven't really stopped supporting a product, and they generally make it better as time goes on. And as I mentioned, you have no long-term contracts with AWS, so it's up to you when you want to stop using AWS, and if you want to move somewhere else, you're not locked into that long-term contract. And again, they have hundreds of products and services for almost every use case. So in terms of on-premise, some of these you may have already come across. This may be challenges that you're already facing and why you want to move to AWS. So with the on-premise model of contracts and renting particular machines, etc., some of the things that you may come across are things like long-term contract commitments. It means you're stuck with what you've bought for a year, 18 months or more, and you're locked into what you thought you needed at the time when you signed the contract. So if your business changes, or for example during the pandemic, people's traffic may have increased or decreased depending on how online they are. With an on-premise model, you're stuck with what you have. You can't really expand on it in a rapid way. Whereas with cloud computing, you can add capacity as you need it, or remove capacity. And that means that you can adapt to change. So to mention, the pandemic means that a lot of companies that are online based, like education providers, where they need to move from the classroom to online, have had to rapidly change their operating models to allow for that extra scale, and usually in quite a rapid timescale. In some cases with on-premise, you may actually be operating on outdated hardware as well. So what was good 18 months ago is probably sort of middle of the road, or even not very good now, just because of the rate of change of computing. And in on-premise, you generally have a lack of control in a lot of cases, where so example of this is where you might want to open a new port. You have to go through like a change control process, or you have to essentially ask for permission before you're able to do that. With AWS, you get a lot more of that control. And just in the next section here, I'm going to cover some of the services that will help with a migration to AWS. So first two I'm going to cover the Cloud Endure and also the application migration service, which is Amazon's version of Cloud Endure, but in the console and sort of more integrated. So Cloud Endure was a company that Amazon bought a number of years ago that allowed for an agent to be installed on a server to do sort of block level copying of data over to AWS for backup purposes and migration purposes. So it allows you to essentially copy a server block by block and have an exact copy of that on AWS. The Migration Hub is generally a place where all of your data about what you're going to migrate through different agents that you've collected will be stored, and you can run reports there and figure out what you actually have. The Application Discovery Service it's an agent that will run on your machine and allow you to figure out what you actually have running. So this will figure out all the background processes that are running that haven't been changed in years, and also your actual application and how it's communicating with everything. AWS Data Sync is a virtual machine that you can attach to a network attached storage that allows you to copy data from those types of storage over to AWS without really having to interact with it that much. The Server Migration Service is for moving a full virtual machine over. So you can take a VMware virtual machine and actually migrate that over into an EC2 instance. And the Database Migration Service is where you have an on-premise database, and it allows you to copy the data over row by row, and it also allows you to change the schema of databases, and it even allows you to change from one database type to another. So in terms of actually doing a migration, the people talk about the 6 R's, which are the main methods of migration. AWS sometimes refer to a 7th as well. And the 6 R's that we're talking about here are retire, retain, rehost, replatform, repurchase, or refactor. And I'll go into those in a second. The 7th one Amazon talks about is relocate, which is moving from VMware Cloud essentially to AWS's VMware Cloud. So you're essentially moving the whole virtual machine over to AWS without really any other changes. So in my view, that's a specialization of replatform. It's not really, it's its own thing, but AWS do like to call that one out. So in terms of the 6 R's, the first two, retire and retain, are where you're either going to stop using a part of your platform and actually just turn it off completely. So that's where something's used by a small amount of customers or it's out of date and you don't need it anymore. And retain is where you're going to actually keep it on premise and not move it to AWS. So they are generally out of scope of the rest of the migration. Rehosting is the sort of most common one. It's also referred to as lift and shift. And that's where you're moving your application and data into AWS without really changing the architecture. So you may be moving from, for example, an on-premise VM to an EC2 instance, all the same software, and it runs pretty much the same. Replatforming is where you're essentially doing a lot of the same things as rehosting, but you're changing where it's actually going to be hosted. So an example of that might be moving an on-premise database over to RDS. So you're changing the service, but the underlying how it works is still the same. Repurchasing is where you are maybe taking an existing part of your platform and replacing it with something else, like a SaaS product, such as MailChimp, as a replacement for SMTP and SendMail, for example. And refactoring is one of the sort of more complicated ones, where that's actually changing how your application works and changing the architecture of it. So that includes things like moving to a serverless solution, or just even splitting up your application, moving into containers and having a microservice type application. That's usually the end goal of a lot of migrations, but not where people start. people usually like to get onto AWS first and then start considering refactoring. And one of the biggest tips I can give in a migration is just to document everything, especially during the migration and planning phase. So when you're going through those phases, the more that you can document up front, the better your migration will be. And this is of particular use in a lot of the cases that we've came across. So, for example, we had a 20-year-old application that had been built up, and over time, different people had worked on it, large teams, and it was fairly monolithic. But because of the nature of on-premise, a lot of the background code that was running on whatever server it could fit on. There was stuff that had been running for years that nobody had ever needed to touch since it was originally deployed, because it just worked. And finding all those different things that are running and how they interact with each other, and all the different, in this example, all the different network storage that was available, was key to the success of the migration, because unless you know what you're going to migrate, you're going to miss stuff, and it will delay your migration. And that's usually where we find the issues in migration. It's not caused by what you're migrating, it's where you've missed something, or you've missed a connection that your application needs, whether that's to a third party or a background process that needs to be refactored in some way to work on your new platform. So just a bit more detail with the discovery phase. Once you've actually got all the details, some of the things that you might find is you might find code that's been written by people who have left the business, one-off purpose code, so something that was written to solve a customer problem that was run in the background and only the person that wrote it knows about it. You may have no documentation or very light documentation. You may also have processes running machines wherever that you can fit. As I mentioned in the example, the 20-year-old application had loads of stuff over every server that it could fit on, just to actually get these processes running, because having them on centralized machines wasn't really feasible because of the amount of them. You may have customer specific code that, again, you might not actually need this anymore. They may have written code for a customer that's no longer with you, and you may have older hardware. So a lot of these are based on the on-premise restrictions, but you need to know about all of this in the actual discovery phase. So you may also have code that interacts with providers or even internal and specific ports, and you need to note that down, because that will become important when you're designing your solution. And you need to make sure you're taking note of any fixed hardware or fixed IP addresses that you're currently communicating with, because you'll need to have a plan for how to deal with that. And before you actually migrate, it's useful to actually set up your AWS account in a good way. Rather than just using a single account, generally what we would advise is use multiple accounts in an organizational structure. That gives you centralized billing, but it also allows you to have separate dev, stage, prod, test accounts for each of your workloads. And that allows separation of concern, so you can make sure that the only people that can access it are people who need to access it. We also recommend using cross-account roles for access, so that rather than having users in every account, you have one centralized set of users and they have access to the other accounts. Setting up a centralized login and centralized security accounts is usually a good idea. Again, that separation of concerns, and have your team that deals with the security and the debugging, having that away from people who don't need to see that. So you may have your developers in one account, your production support teams in a different account, for example. And we always recommend using least privilege access, where you only give users the access that they need to do the role that they're doing. Generally, during migration, you might give them more access so that they can help out and change your architecture as needed, but once you're actually up and running, you lock it down to only what they actually need. And IAM Access Analyzer is usually quite a good tool for figuring out what people are actually using. And so in terms of Cloud Endure is a tool for actually moving, as I mentioned, block storage, or moving block by block system over to AWS. You install an agent and then it communicates on port 443 with Cloud Endure, but then the actual replication happens over port 1500, and it uses a replication server to copy all the data over, and you end up with a target server on AWS as an EC2 instance that you can then launch into production. But there's some things that you should be watching out for when you're using Cloud Endure. So these are some of the things that we've came across. Generally, the use of a direct connect is recommended, or at least a VPN, just to keep the connection secure, but also have a dedicated line. The quicker you can get port 443 and 1500 open on your on-premise means the quicker you can actually get the Cloud Endure communicating properly. Generally, multiple network interfaces aren't supported, or you at least have issues with it. We have had some success with installing the enhanced networking adapter drivers on on-premise hardware, because we had issues where without those drivers, the target machine wouldn't boot because it didn't know how to actually connect to the internet or to connect to the local VPC. So Cloud Endure does block level copying, so for server attached, for SANs, as long as they're actually represented on the machine as a block device, it will get copied as if it was a local drive. But for network file shares, you should use something like the data sync or install the Cloud Endure agent directly on the server where that's possible. We have had issues in the past where EC2 for Windows machines only have up to 2 terabytes as a root drive, even if the source machine actually has more. So I know 2 terabytes is quite a lot, but it's something we have actually hit. The replication only also supports GPT, so it's GUID partition table, and as long as they're if they're dynamic, it means you can't get them on as boot devices. We've came across issues with UEFI booting. Cloud Endure does have an option for that, so it's just making sure that's ticked if you are using UEFI boots. The one thing to watch out for Cloud Endure as well is in the replication settings, it does default to provisioned IOPS for some reason, and that can be very expensive if you don't catch that. Generally, it's useful to move it down to GP2. And if you've got a virtual machine running on your on-premise hardware, that generally needs to be removed first, including any Hyper-V extensions, because that will stop the machine from booting as well. And as I mentioned before, any hard-coded IP addresses need to be removed. So once you've actually created a plan and you're ready to migrate, depending on what you're actually migrating and how complex it is, you can use a single day to migrate everything over, or move different parts of the application at different times. But there are also different things that you can do while migrating that will make things a bit easier. So following the plan that you've set out is generally a good idea, and making sure that you've ticked off all the steps that you're doing and you're not skipping anything unless it's a really good reason that you've identified an issue with it. As I mentioned before, documenting everything will make this process a lot easier. So once you actually have all the details of what you're going to migrate, and when you come to do the migration, following what you've already identified will run things a lot smoother. For the people that are actually involved in the process of doing the migration, make sure that everybody's kept informed, whether that's stakeholders or the actual people doing the migration. Generally something like a meetup every so often, and video conferencing, or having people physically in the same place, and keeping stakeholders up to date is usually a good idea, just to make sure everybody's on the same page of what's been done, what's not been done, what's still to be done. And communicating, as I mentioned, is a really key thing. So make sure you don't have one person going away and doing one part of the plan and everybody else thinks somebody else is doing it. You end up with duplication and confusion, or things not done in the right order. And if you do have to fix something that comes up during the migration phase, which is usually quite likely, you'll find something doesn't quite work the way you thought it did when you actually move it over, or you'll find something else during the migration phase that was potentially missed during the discovery phase. You can fix it during the migration, but make sure that you're doing it in such a way that it's documented and it's repeatable later on, so that you just don't end up with all these fixes that are done during the migration, that if there's ever an issue with them that come up at the end, you don't know what to do with them because it was done during the migration and it wasn't properly documented. And then after your actual migration, then congratulations, you've migrated to AWS. So you've done a difficult task, but there's steps that you now need to do. You can concentrate on actually running the workload on AWS. And this is where you start doing your optimization and refactoring and making things better and taking advantage of all the different services that AWS have and generally adding new features to your application or making it more cost efficient, etc. And once you've actually started to do that, then and once you're settled down and you're in the groove of actually running your new application, you can then start splitting it up and doing refactoring. You might run a pilot workload on serverless, for example, and do more cloud native applications and workloads. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that and come up with some good use cases, and I wish you all success in any migrations that you do.
Thanks for that insight, John, who is in fact right now joining me live, not from Singapore or from a different time zone, but part of Scotland. Whereabouts are you in Scotland?
I'm in Glasgow, John, so thanks for having me. I'm in the chat as User-san.
Gotcha. So. Right. Now I put two and two together. Like now I know who I was talking to. Great stuff. Yeah, good city, Glasgow. I've enjoyed weekends up there. So I guess the one thing that like I say we have in common is that you're an AWS APN ambassador. I would usually have some Ferrero Rocher to kind of wave around to celebrate that, but I ate them all last time, so decided that probably wasn't the best bet. But you're fairly recent to the ambassador program, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I just joined a couple of weeks ago now, I think. The process was actually quite quick for me as well. I think it was only like a week or two and actually joining that, because I had a bunch of stuff actually that I'd done over the last year as a sort of prerequisites for it. So yeah, it's been good so far. I actually really enjoyed it.
Great stuff. Yeah, for those of you on the stream who are unfamiliar with the program, the APN ambassadors are people like myself and like John who are fairly regularly giving back into the community with sort of talks and blog posts and so forth, and so they kind of they recognise us in a I guess we get sort of information that isn't generally available. We get to chat to people from the product teams. There are some reInvent benefits, assuming that goes ahead this year, which I believe is planned. But you'll hear, no doubt, if you follow John on Twitter, you'll see more of his ambassadorial outputs. Blogging seems to be your thing, is that right, John?
Yeah, mostly blogging and these types of webinars. I co-run the AWS Edinburgh user group, and we've also just taken over the DevOps Edinburgh user group, and we've got some talks coming up for that as well. So yeah, blogging and the webinars are kind of my two things.
Gotcha. So we've got a few people on the feed this evening who are definitely interested in doing their SA associate, and I guess the what you've just talked about in terms of migration is actually partly content that is on that exam, right? You want to talk briefly about, I guess, maybe your experience of going for that exam and what sort of things it was useful to know for the benefit of people who are going to be doing that.
Yeah, definitely. The essay associate has been a while since I've done it now, so I've still got about another year or so on it before that renews. But yeah, a lot of what we've talked about there and how you migrate, and actually just knowing how you run things on AWS and actually how things are designed and all the different services that you can use is really important. One of just as a sort of more general tip for exams, when I've been doing the exams, I've been using a lot of the like A-Cloud Guru, who are now I can't remember who's now bought them.
Pluralsight. As of like, I think that purchase happened on the day of our last meetup. It was like announced that morning, I think.
Yeah, it's good. So I've been using that, and a lot of the specific exams on Udemy as well. One of the biggest things I found is actually the practice exams on Udemy, and actually being able to take those sort of over and over again and see where I was actually needing the extra help, and then once I've can identify the area that I'm slightly weaker on, going into the reInvent videos with the deep dives, like the 300 and 400 level talks, and actually drilling down much more into that side of things and actually getting more detail there. Sometimes with those you might end up getting a bit more information than you need for the associate exam, but it will always help you in the future if you decide to go for the SA Pro. So there's definitely some good ones on there. There's one I'd really recommend. There's an IAM deep dive video that explains the sort of process behind IAM and the reasoning of it. And that one actually got me understanding service control policies a lot more than I did before it. And so that's definitely a good one. Same with the DynamoDB ones. Their videos are quite good.
Yep, that's very similar to how I go about it as well. Actually, the sort of taking practice exams to highlight the areas that you're weak on, and then sort of going off into the official. I tend to use the white papers quite a bit, as well as the reembed content. I tend to I absorb information more quickly in written form than I do in video, where I'm sort of sat kind of impatiently speeding it up to get to the meat.
I think I listen to all the videos in 1.5 speed and just kind of take it in that way.
Yeah. I didn't meet, but I saw Ryan Kroonenberg from A Cloud Guru at the AWS Summit in London a couple of years ago, and was amused and surprised to find that I was expecting him to talk faster because I'd been watching all of his videos on double speed. Cool. So let's talk about migration. Obviously, a chosen specialist subject for you. Is there fundamentally a difference between migrating an existing workload and building something brand new in AWS? And what is that in terms of like the approach and the way you think about design?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. With both, you are essentially going to be building out the architecture anyway. So with something brand new and something on-premise, you may have EC2 instances, for example, and VPCs, etc. But the biggest thing with migration is that you're going to have the existing application there, and it's going to be set up to be working on the on-premise side. So it's going to have all specific setup for like how to get out to the internet, all the different ports, anything that you would actually need it to run on there. And you're going to need to figure out what all of that setup is before you can migrate it. So with doing something brand new on AWS, you may be, say, for example, you're doing like a LAMP stack, you're going to be installing the packages, getting the setup and putting your config on there. But when you're migrating, you're going to have a lot of that already. So you need to actually figure out what's going to work, what's up, where are the blockers going to be on this, how do you actually adapt my application on AWS. In a lot of cases, because it is virtual machines, and if you're doing a like for like, a lot of it will just work. But there's always going to be something that'll come out of the woodwork that you'll not realise, and you'll need to try and find a workaround for. And that's why documenting everything and actually doing testing on it before you go into production to find those issues is key. Yeah,
I was struck by your emphasis on documentation. I think it's the sort of thing that I think a lot of people in tech don't have a good leaning towards. Is that something that you've always had, or was it, is that a hard one through experience?
Yeah, definitely the latter. My background as a programmer, and generally is in IT. I've never really liked writing documentation, but I know the value of it, especially like 6 months, a year later, when it's not all in your head because you've moved on to something else. Actually writing something down can save you so much time later on to try and figure it out from sort of first principles again. And especially in migrations, the more that we've documented, the easier the process has been. It's just that extra. Even if it's like, if you spend a couple of days just writing documentation, even if you think you know it, spending that extra time will save you so much time down the line. Yeah, and I like the fact that you're also talking about making a plan, but then also making sure that you stick to the plan when you go to do the thing itself. Easy to sort of get off track a little bit, I think, isn't it, when you're doing that sort of thing? Definitely, yeah. The temptation's definitely there to just go away and do the new thing that you want to do, or to get something up and running. But if you don't do everything that you said you were going to do, it's just going to bite you later on. Yeah, cool. Just as an aside, I'm whilst we're talking, I'm keeping half an eye on my other laptop because I'm waiting for the raffle winners to arrive in the slide deck. So I'm going to fill until they do. We might be chatting for a little while while Paul's sorting that out.
the Cloud Endure is a tool I haven't really come across as anything other than, I guess, a thing that's mentioned in the exam content. I'm a bit more familiar with things like Storage Gateway and that sort of stuff. Is there sort of overlap with that method?
There's an overlap in what you can do. Cloud Endure essentially is, I think it started off as like a backup product, so a way of actually taking a virtual machine with attached storage and actually backing that up to an EC2 instance, so you could run it there if you needed to. And then it started to be used for migration. So it's essentially just the agent running in the background, and it'll copy at a block level everything that's on the drive exactly as it is. So you end up with like a snapshot there. There are other tools, so like you can use the VM import. For example, if you've managed to get a VMware image of the server, and that'll do essentially the same thing, but it won't have that continuous replication. And to mention, you can use things like DataSync to actually transfer network file storage across. So there is definitely a lot of overlap, and usually finding the right tool for what type of instance you're actually going to be moving over is quite key. I think in some of the migrations we've done, usually Cloud Endure was the first one that we tried, but every time we would come up against an issue, we'd try and figure out something else to do it. So some of the examples are like not being able to open that port 1500. That means the replication just won't work at all. So in those instances, having to get an image of the machine itself, upload that to S3, and then create an EC2 instance from that. That was kind of our way around it. But yeah, there's definitely overlap between all the different services.
And is the replication of going in Cloud Endure, is that sort of continuous in the same way that DMS is for databases, where as you're working on that machine, it's updating the changed blocks so that you can more easily switch over in the final kind of cutover?
Yeah, it works exactly the same. Yeah, there's an initial period where it does the initial replication, and then it goes into continuous replication mode. So depending on the server, sometimes that initial replication can take a while. I think the longest we had was about a week, but that was for a server that had like 16 terabytes of storage attached to it.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, that's a lot of storage to be moving around.
Yeah. That was the same server where we had the limit on the boot drive being 2 terabytes, which isn't really a Cloud Endure limit. It's actually an EC2 limit that we found out. But yeah, it's the first time I came across that one, because it's the first time I moved a machine that's had 2 terabytes in its initial drive. Yeah,
it's pretty involved. So there's a question from the chat. It's Ijaz, who's one of the organisers, who I literally haven't seen for months. Hello, Ijaz. Ijaz asks, many applications are developed or managed by third parties. How do you optimise or refactor those after a lift and shift?
Yeah, so one of the best things I can actually say is probably to try and get the third party involved if it's possible, just to get that information of what is actually there. When you do a Cloud Endure migration, it will copy the system exactly as it is. So to actually make sure that the third-party application is working, you need to make sure that the AWS side of it has all the security groups open, it has all the route to the internet if it's required, and actually have that application be able to run in the same way as it does in the original side. But as it's going to be a block level migration, so it's doing exactly what's on the disk, it should essentially just run as is on the machine. It's just the external stuff to that, like the internet access and the ports that you would need to worry about in that case. But yeah, the more you can get the third party involved to sort of describe exactly what they've done and how it interacts with the outside world, the easier that process is going to be. Yeah,
because I guess over time there are things like you might want to take, I don't know, secrets that were baked into config files on those machines and put them in secrets manager or parameter store or something. And I guess at that point you're going to need to crack open the app and start making some changes. So you might need the original authors around to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends on how much you want to actually be able to dig into that. You may need to interact with the third party to say, this is what we want to do, and here's how you would store it in Secrets Manager, and actually give them the code and then give them access to be able to do that. So yeah, it's talking with them and figuring that out. So that side of it is another what I just wanted to mention. Is although when I mentioned the sort of 6 R's and the different ways of migrating, you're choosing them for each individual sort of part of your application that you're moving across. But what I would say is that if there are any sort of low-hanging fruit or things that you can change while you're doing that migration, it's usually quite useful to do them before you cut over. So one of the examples in the application I was talking about, we had a set of servers that were using like a sort of master-slave process for doing worker tasks, and they were running on a set of, say, 10, 15 physical servers, and all of them were identical in terms of the software that was installed. So while we did the migration, we did a lift and shift to one machine, then created an image of that and made it an auto-scaling group. So we ended up getting that scalability benefit without really having to change anything about the application itself, other than there was a script that ran every time there was a scale out event to add the new server's IP address into the server, so that it knew where that worker server was. So getting that benefit there for very little change is a good thing to do during the migration.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Cool, great stuff. Final question for you then, John. We've got reInvent later in the year. I don't know if you're going to be able to make that as an ambassador and take advantage of the reserved seating at the front, and that way you can throw vegetables at Werner if you feel like it. What's on your wish list for reInvent this year? What's the thing you're missing?
Yeah, so probably some cloud formation improvements. Really, that's probably the one thing that actually. So I interact with every day. There have been some recent ones in System Manager and version control and everything, but one of the things that irritates me is when you have a large CloudFormation stack with multiple substacks that takes quite a while. So say, for example, there's a restore a database step. Getting to the end of that, you've maybe sat there for half an hour, and there'd been a bug in one of the substacks, and then it rolls the entire thing all the way back. I wish there was a better way of doing that. It would save me so much time. The other thing I'd actually quite like is like an architecture diagram program. So something like, I know you have programs like Lucidchart where you can hook it up to your AWS account and it'll spider through and figure out what's there. But something that's more AWS native that you could actually say, here's all the things that actually work together. Kind of in the way they do for microservices. We have the graph or through X-Ray, but something that actually just says like, here's all the VPCs, the security groups, NAT gateways, and here's how everything actually links together. So you can actually then drill down and say, okay, well, the issue is going to be somewhere in here. Like maybe a VPC peering connection you're having a look into. Something that would make that process a bit easier, and just being able to say, here's actually what I have in terms of architecture without having to spend hours going away and actually diagramming it all yourself, because then you might diagram your infrastructure when you first create it, but then as you go along, you might add things and not update the diagram, and then it's out of date. So something where you could automate that side of things would be really useful. Yeah,
I'm sort of picturing a Minority Report style kind of big old console that you're kind of diving around data. Be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually have one more question from the chat. The Luke Rogerson, who apparently has the definite article at the beginning of his name. The Luke Rogerson says, ever done another cloud provider migration to AWS from, for example, Azure or GCP? What complications might come up there?
Yeah. Funnily enough, we're actually in the middle of, well, we've not quite started the migration, but we're in the discovery phase of an Azure to AWS migration. And we've already come up across some issues on that one. So one of the biggest things is actually figuring out how the services map together. Because with AWS and Azure, there are similarities in some of it, but some of the fundamental ways that AWS works are different from Azure. So, for example, Azure has the subscription concept where you can actually you can tie everything together based on a particular subscription, and you can restrict access to that. And when you go to the AWS world, you don't really have that within an account. And I think the best ways of doing it is actually just doing a separate account for that. But there are other tools that I think Azure has a lot of tools around the security thing that that AWS doesn't really have. A lot of the sort of the intrusion detection stuff is a lot better on Azure, and the threat detection. So try to find a replacement for that. And there's one of the things, a just-in-time access policy, where you can say you can grant access for an hour to a particular machine, and it will automatically expire. So I think AWS has the tools to do that with like the token service, but it's one of these things that's the builder paradigm from AWS, where they'll give you all the tools to do exactly what you need, but you might need to actually build it together yourself to sort of chain these applications together to be able to do something. So yeah, that's kind of the main challenge, I think, is just figuring out what's there on Azure and how to map that to AWS and where the gaps are.
Yep.
And also where AWS can do things better, because you might be able to refactor some of the ways of doing things on Azure to do it in the AWS style of doing things that may be quicker or less complicated.
Yeah, we do some work at the moment with a well-known security vendor who have a large GCP estate, and we're working on migrating that over to AWS. And I think that the main thing is that because it's another cloud vendor, there's already a level of cloud native thinking involved. So they are thinking in terms of containers and orchestrators, and the security groups and whatever the Google equivalent of those things are. So there isn't quite as much rethinking about design, but as you say, it's sort of mapping, looking for equivalents, and sort of trying to replace the things that other cloud vendor does well with components that suit the target environment. So it's I guess no less challenging necessarily to do that kind of migration, but the challenges are a little bit different looking.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining, John. It transpires that we don't have raffle winners this evening, so I'm just going to carry on. But it's been great chatting with you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Hopefully I'll bump into you in person at something ambassadorial in the near future. Thanks for dialing in. Yeah. Thanks, John.
Yeah, well, great, and thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks very much. So, as I just said, we currently are lacking raffle winners. That would usually have been filled out. I'm pointing the wrong direction because I'm mirrored that way. I don't know. The raffle will have been drawn by now, but we haven't managed to do that. We will be providing details of the raffle winners on Discord, so do make sure that you're signed up there. We'll also, of course, be in touch with you if you have one. Sorry, those of you who entered, if you were hoping to find out this evening that you were a proud owner of a new Echo, I'm afraid that we've had to let you down this time, but we will be in touch if you've won in the near future. Just another couple of final announcements as we wrap up. Thanks again to our sponsors Deloitte, eSynergy Solutions, and Sainsbury's Tech for their support this year, actually as a whole. And also thank you to the people behind the scenes who make some of this meetup happen, who are Paul, Natalie, Jonas, Yo-Yo, and Ijaz, who some of whom have been on the feed actually, and you saw Yo-Yo talking about the certification challenge earlier. So that's a familiar face. But these guys are working away in the background, making sure that we've got speakers lined up, and we've got AMAs set up, and the Discord is well looked after, and so forth. So big thanks to those guys. It's not just me. I get to be the beardy face every couple of months, but actually everybody else is doing far more work than I am. And the next meetup is going to be on the 15th of September. Currently not sure whether that's going to be in person or online. My suspicion is it might be online, but we will keep you posted on that on the meetup page, and let you know who we're going to have speaking. Also, don't forget that we've got the Corey Quinn AMA on the 28th. You can find the Corey Quinn channel on Discord if you've got questions for him about cloud economics, marketing, I guess, since he's clearly an expert at that. Platypuses, I imagine he would probably be willing to answer questions about as well, and anything else that you've seen him shitpost about on Twitter, which is most topics, I think, in the tech world. Do please fill out our attendee survey so that we know what went well for you this evening, what didn't go quite so well, and we will take your feedback on board and use that to iterate and improve our event in its future iterations. Thank you very much, those of you who've joined this evening. Great to present for you. Big thanks to our speakers this evening as well, John and Boyka. Please do stay safe, have a good rest of the evening, and we will see you again next time. Thanks very much.